I'm alone in a room by myself, talking to myself.
Everything's kind of going now, so whenever we're ready, we can get cracking.
Software is not professional.
Yeah.
People are professional.
Women power. Let's go. Final cut.
Sam. There we go. There we go. Do 2.
Whoa.
Make sure it's a...
That actually hurt me.
So yeah, well, this is our first episode doing this, and it's been a long time in the making.
Mm-hmm.
So should we go back and kind of see what kind of inspired the show? Well, first of all, let's introduce ourselves. That might be a great start for the people that are listening and watching us, as to who the hell we are and where we're from, what do we do, things like that, and then moving to kind of how the podcast got started. Really, I think that might be a good show introduction. So, do you want to open up, Gabriel, and see where we go with that? So,
Sure. I'm Gabriel Spalding. I run Ace Enterprises, a small video production company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I've wanted to do a video production show for quite some time, and it was leaving the Final Cut Pro 10 Creative Summit last October that really got me inspired to get moving on it. And I immediately after reached out to Sam, and we reached out to someone else who you'll be meeting shortly in the episode. And the ball kind of got rolling from there. We did one trial run. This is a bug fix release, so this should be our first official episode, and we're recording on Friday, April 13th, 2018.
wow, it's an unlucky day to record. Thinking about it now,
Yesterday was my birthday, so it kind of works out.
That's very true.
Our first episode is on Friday the 13th.
Which kind of, to be honest with you, when we describe the show later on, it kind of works really. It's kind of a.
There couldn't be a better day.
There couldn't be a better day, but for me, my name's Sam Woodall. I also run a video production company, but on the other side of the planet. I'm based in the UK, based in Wolverhampton, Warsaw, UK, and. Yeah, I've always wanted to do something kind of video related in terms of either tutorials or producing a podcast in terms of just, anything video production or video editing related. And when Gabriel kind of came to me, I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I've been wanting to do for a while as well. And it kind of married itself very quickly in terms of, getting things rolling, finding a name for it and things like that, which the name in itself has got its own backstory. And, it's got an interesting little thing that I think Gabriel will probably talk about and mention. So,
there are a lot of shows out there that are already really well done. A lot of gear review shows, a lot of tutorials, things we all have an interest in. But I wasn't really interested in doing what everybody else is doing and doing it in the same way. So, I wanted something with a little bit of an edge, something where people can speak freely and there's no political correctness, speak what's on your mind. Get a Grip has multiple meanings that'll become clear, as each episode moves on. But I think the umbrella meaning, Get a Grip, is that we are both one-man bands, and there are a lot of one-man, one-woman bands out there, independent business owners who have to do everything. Working with clients, finding clients, writing, shooting, editing, coloring, graphics, audio mixing, everything. And while the tools we have available now, today, are better than anything we've ever had access to, that's still a lot of responsibility. And if you constantly challenge yourself, it doesn't take too long before you kind of hit your head on the ceiling of what one person can achieve competently. So having an assistant or a grip it's kind of one of those things that can help you move to the next level. And that kind of covers our two main topics today, or rather that introduces our two main topics. But before we get into that, Sam, kind of how did you get started? What inspired you to get into video production to begin with?
Well, I've always been kind of interested in doing something creative and either it kind of goes back to when I was growing up, and I used to do a lot of drawing, a lot of art, a lot of graphic stuff. I used to doodle all the time. I used to be interested in Disney films, animation, things like that. I was really big on that kind of thing. So I got interested in the creative arts quite quickly, quite early on, and it really became a case of, well, where do I fit in this massive world, massive kind of creative landscape? Do I want to be an artist? Do I want to be a filmmaker? Do I want to be, an actor? Things like that. So I kind of took on many different personas throughout in the creative area, but I landed with video production around about when I was about 14, 15, and
Okay.
took it up at school, started up a YouTube channel, got into it that way. Me and my friends really kind of took it home, and we really kind of went, oh, what can we make with this little camera that we needed to hook up to it was a tape camera, and it was a digital camera that we needed to use a tape recorder for, because the files wouldn't import correctly, and it wasn't optimized, it wasn't kind of thing, so we had to kind of play back every single clip we had for this tape recorder. It was insane, and that kind of got me rolling. And from college, UK college, not American college, it's going to be a bit of a difficult thing to kind of get our heads around, but the education system. When I was about kind of 16 to 18, I did a course for media film production and took that through to university, and about 6 months after leaving university, I started my own production company. So it's kind of been a case of seeing where I land, but post-production for me has been the big thing, and I was called the editor at college and university for the fact that I always kind of knew my way around Final Cut. I always knew my way around After Effects and things like that, so I could produce half-decent stuff from half-decent turds, basically, was kind of the thing. And it was literally a case of, go to Sam, he knows how to fix it. So it was either the fixer or the editor, I think, was kind of... well, kind of both, I imagine, was kind of my nicknames at college and university, so... Goodness me. What about you, Gabriel? Because how did you get started? Because I know you've been in the kind of media production field longer than I have, in terms of kind of your own company's been out longer than I have.
Yeah, well, just like you, when I was a kid, I was drawing all the time. I was drawing, sketching, sci-fi, aliens, robots, things like that. And I always loved movies as well. So, pretty early age, I wanted to do special effects. Of course, inspired by Star Wars. That's not a story unique to me. It's a story unique to no one. But then I remember around the time when Terminator 2 came out, I was really inspired by that movie, and I would go to the public library. This is pre-internet, really. Or I think some of my wealthier friends had computers, but internet was new to me. So I'd go to the library and look up everything I could about the behind the scenes and the making of. I got really inspired by that. That led me deeper into Industrial Light and Magic, which of course led me to George Lucas, who, while a director, kind of started out as an editor. And that piqued my interest in editing. And then in high school, I took a couple classes in video production, and that was pre-digital video. That was, tape machines. Mm-hmm. And then shortly after I graduated high school, digital video became a thing. So I saved up and got my first iMac DV special edition, the first Mac where you could plug in a FireWire cable and edit digital video. Messed around with that. Didn't have any money though. It was just like that's all I had, a little crappy camcorder and that iMac. But some friends of mine and I spent 5 years making a parody of the Terminator called The Gluttonator. You can find it online. There was zero production value. We had no lights, no microphones. I mean, it was just but we did it. We did the whole thing in iMovie.
Oh wow!
And so that was released in 2005. And then I didn't really have anything else going on production-wise. But then I got married in 2008, and it didn't take long before my wife was like, Gabe, you can charge people to do this stuff. So yeah. I got trained in Final Cut Pro 7, got certified. Final Cut Pro 10 immediately came out, so I jumped on that. I got my first big client at the time. That got me hired at a local production company as the lead editor. I was there for 10 months, left, and then immediately started my company. And I'm in my 6th year now. I do a lot of corporate videos, promotional training, educational. Yeah. Somehow I've ended up doing a lot of sports and fitness videos, which is kind of hilarious to me because I in my personal life have nothing to do with sports or fitness.
Yeah, can you tell I do? I've got nothing to do with sports. Can you tell?
Oh, well.
Right, yeah, I was going to say we can now probably, maybe I think, well, if we give them a chance, we can probably bring in our guest for the show and for a lot of the shows in the future. Philippe Bias. Hello, Philippe. How you doing?
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Good morning. Well, what time is it there?
Here is a little later. It's almost 4 p.m.
And where is
4 p.m.
there?
Oh yeah, where am I? I'm not in the US and I'm not in the UK. I'm in Prague, in Czech Republic.
Goodness me. So we've got like 3 pockets of, I don't know, I don't know what you would say, cultural diversity going on really with this podcast. We've got 3 different countries and 3 different people from those countries. It's a bit of a mashup, this podcast, and I think that's one of the kind of cool things about it.
Yeah, and actually I'm not really Czech. I am Brazilian.
Oh, that's true. That's true as well.
I've been living here for 11 years.
That's true.
But I'm almost Czech.
That's true.
I drink like a Czech person.
That's one thing to be proud of, I'm sure. So tell us a bit about you, Philippe, kind of along the lines of what we've been going on with, how we got started, where we come from, where'd you go?
Well, video started for me pretty much by really just watching movies, watching TV shows, always liked that. Never saw myself making them, but I always enjoyed. And at some point, a friend of mine that had a Mac said, "Oh, you should definitely get a Mac. They're so much better than PCs." And at that point, he was saying that so many times that I was like, okay, I'm gonna try. And I found an iBook to buy. That was my first Mac. And then he told me, "Oh, get Final Cut because you can edit some videos." I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't make videos." And at that time, I was very interested in photography. And going to video was at least interesting. So he had a digital camera that we could play around. I don't even know. I think it was a Sony camera, one of those that has a super zoom or something like that. And that's how I started with Final Cut Pro 5. And then soon after that, I bought a mini DV cam. Someone hired me to film a dance congress, so I was filming classes and the parties and people around and making highlights and making a DVD, made DVD on DVD Studio. That was pretty much my first contact with video, but besides that, I never thought I was going to make any money at all. So in the core, I'm an IT person. My first full-time job was as a systems administrator, and my whole career in a way is dependent on IT. When I moved to Czech Republic, I worked for McKinsey & Company and I worked for Accenture, and both of them had a lot of background with IT. Now with Accenture, I was hired as a technical director for broadcast, and that's how I actually got back in touch with video. And it was about the same time that Final Cut Pro 10 came out. And at that time, basically starting to work with video again professionally, and Final Cut Pro 10 coming out, it was really good for me. And after that, I decided to leave the company and open my own company. And now I am an entrepreneur. I'm on my 9th month on my own, and it's going.
Well, it's interesting. We've got 3 different businesses that are kind of in different stages of its life. I think that's pretty cool. Because you've been doing Ace Enterprises for 6 years, did you say?
Yeah, I started it in 1996, but it wasn't an actual formed business until 6 years ago. So.
Okay, so that's kind of the longest running one in terms of longevity, but as an official, it's been 6. For me, it's been about 2. It'll be 3 in January. So and for you, it's been 9 months, Philippe. So that's kind of interesting that we've got these 3 different stages of progression, really, and that kind of works really well into kind of what challenges we've faced at these stages of our businesses, and what kind of things do we experience, because we can, even though we've been at these different stages with our businesses and with our production companies, we've all got interesting challenges we have to face every single day with finding clients, maintaining kind of standards of work, and just lots of other stuff going on. So, what kind of things have we'll start with Gabriel. Really, we'll start with kind of longest to middle, then to, you know, just found it, to say, and then we'll kind of go from there. So, what kind of challenges have you faced with, you know, running solo and running your own business and things like that?
So yeah, finding clients is probably the most important challenge of running your own business, because if you don't have clients, there are no other challenges, that they don't matter. You just go back to working in kitchens or mopping floors or doing, you know, being a hitman, whatever you do to make money. So I've been fortunate in that early on I found a lot of my current clients through Craigslist, and then they're all repeat. Most of them are repeat business, and a lot of my other clients I got from word of mouth through those clients. I highly recommend getting in with like a marketing or advertising agency, because once you're in with them, each agency tends to have multiple departments that have different needs at different times of the year. And when they have an overflow of work, you just got to call out of the blue. So it's like a constant influx of projects and income. So that's been good to me as well. But being that their business ebbs and flows, it's not something you can count on. And you can't count on any client that way, because even with the best intentions, you know, their need for video rises and falls throughout the year. And that kind of ties directly into one of the other main challenges of running your own business is there is no salary. There is no guaranteed income.
Very true.
So it can be really stressful not knowing where your next paycheck is coming from. But the flip side of that is that you can't really be fired. If you only have one client and they drop you, okay, you're on the street. But if you've got a number of different clients, you've always got other clients you can fall back on. And in my experience, I've lost a couple clients, mostly because they move out of state or whatever. But then you replace them with two more clients. But the flip side of the insecurity of not knowing where your income's going to come from is you have no ceiling. There is no income limit.
Yeah,
It's really limited to the number of clients you can find, how good they are, how good of a negotiator you are, and how well you do your job. I mean, do they call you back? Are they willing to pay you when you raise your prices because your quality increases and your skill level increases? So that's kind of, I mean, what's been your experience? You know, do you have a similar experience? I mean, I know you both are in different countries, and the market's going to be a little different.
For me, it's been a case of kind of, it's a lot of my clients have come from kind of word of mouth, really. I applied for a few things early on, back in, I think there was a few things, I think it was a thing called Talent Circle. I think that might have been a UK thing, I don't know if there was a US or, you know, a worldwide thing. But there was a thing called Talent Circle, and there was a job posting on there for a video editor, working on some little corporate ad video that they were doing. And I went for it, and I applied for it, and I was the only one decent enough that they said that applied, which is kind of worrying, but also very kind of confidence boosting. And that kind of got me off of my first really big client that I've still done work for subsequently. But from there, it's been a case of word of mouth, getting people to kind of, share my information, business cards, passing around, emails, Facebook, things like that. But a lot of the time, it's been a case of just word of mouth, really. I think that comes down to the business in terms of it's not what you know, it's who you know sometimes. But even though you can't really say that, but then not have the work to show for it. So it's kind of like you do kind of have to live up to the expectation. But I think half the time it is who you know and instead of what you know. But from there, I got a few repeat clients, and I currently now work for a large YouTube publishing company, and in the UK. I'm not going to mention the name, obviously, but they.
I'll list them on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah,
okay.
We'll do that. Yeah, we'll publish the name kind of live for everybody. But but aside from that, it's going to be I agree. It's kind of. So then again, kind of the flip side of what you said with finding clients that want to pay your rate. I've had a few incidents where, like, I've had calls come through and they've asked me, "Oh, how much did you charge for editing a music video that's shot like this?" And I'm like, "Well, it's for a day rate. It's like X amount." And they're like, really? It's just a music video. I went, yep, it's my day rate. And they just hang up. And I'm like, all right, fine, fair enough. Your music video was probably not that good anyway. You know.
Well, that makes me think. So when I started out, I would pretty much take anything. I did a number of videos that I would never touch now.
Cool.
Just certain things I don't support and didn't support then, but needed the money. And my rates do fluctuate based on the size of the client and the complexity of the project, of course. But my rates have increased substantially in the last 6 years. But I have in the last year or two turned certain clients away and turned down. I'll see the ad. It's something 3 years ago I would have jumped at. Now I don't even blink at. You look at Craigslist now and you'll see, we need a corporate shooter, a whole day, multiple camera, same day turnaround, $50. And it's like, really nobody should take that job, even if you're starting out, because that's literally rape. So.
Oh, well, yeah.
Have you, are you at the stage where you're turning down any jobs, or?
Most of the time, I've had to turn in a few because it's been not so much kind of how much they're offering, but it's been a case of how, the turnaround on them. It's kind of, I get an email and it's like for the next day, and I'm like, I kind of need notice before I do this job. Like, I need to get equipment, I need to do X, Y, and Z, I need to estimate the costs and things like that. People kind of assume that, oh, I'll email you the day before I need it, and then hopefully you're free, kind of thing. That's kind of where I've been turning down most of the jobs that I've been doing. It's kind of because of delayed or non-responsive clients and things like that. But what about you, Philippe? How have you kind of been with finding clients and getting hold of? Because you mentioned you left your company. How was that in terms of getting started and finding a client, and then kind of keeping that client and maybe finding more and things like that?
Well, first, before I made the decision to actually leave the company, there was a lot of thought that went in my mind. Back in 2014, I wanted to start my own company. So back that time, I already was considering having my own company. But at that time, my idea was to keep having my full-time job and having my company, because I didn't feel comfortable not having a salary. And in the end, I didn't open my company, and I basically felt like I wasn't ready for it yet. And then when it came around this time, there were things internally that I wasn't so happy about it. And I felt like I had the experience now to start my own business. That's how I started. And with that, I had a plan A and a plan B as soon as I would leave. So I had a client lined up. That client ended up working one project with them. But then later on, I wasn't able to do other projects with them. It was more on their side than on mine. So I was left hanging out with my plan B, and my plan B was other people that I had reached out before, and they're happy working with me. And they started looking at other websites, for example, 90seconds.tv. They have once in a while some jobs that you can find there. So that's where I get some gigs of editing or shooting. I just did a shoot very recently for a hotel here in Prague. The rates were okay. They were lower than I would have asked myself, but there is a middleman, right? So the middleman is actually taking a very good cut there. And then, so considering that's actually not too bad. On the other hand, because I'm in the very beginning, I had to make investments such as my iMac, because I only had my MacBook Pro, and the stuff that I was doing. At some point, one client asked me for an 8K deliverable, which was actually 8K by 1K. It was for a huge wall that they were doing an event, and there was a lot of motion templates and graphics that were going there. At that point, I said, I really need an iMac for this. And I purchased the iMac, I got a GH5, I bought a few other equipment, and I said, okay, I'm gonna go on negative this year, so I don't need to worry about income tax. So that was my whole plan. And the first punch on my gut that I had was basically my accountant saying, oh, I can't count the whole price of the iMac and of your camera and into your taxes, because they depreciate over time and etc. So you can only count a third of the price per year. And then suddenly I'm like, oh, no kidding. And And then she said, yeah, you're going to have some income tax to pay. And it was a lot. It was very interesting to see that you might not have any money in the account, in your bank account, and still say, oh yeah, you made a lot of money, and here it is the amount of taxes that you have to pay. So that was a learning experience for me.
I can imagine, yeah.
But nowadays, to find clients, really, I'm looking online, and because I don't speak the local language, I have that barrier. So my girlfriend actually helps me a lot, reaching out to some companies, and where I'm trying to concentrate myself for now is actually to be on retainer in a way, or having a contract with corporations. So going to Microsoft and going to companies like that, and trying to get a contract with them. That's my, let's say, the number one source of income that I'm trying to concentrate right now.
Well, I feel like I should add that, I mentioned you get to a point where you can turn down certain clients when the rates are ridiculously low. That said, I have clients where the per project rate is relatively low compared to my average rate today, but they might be sending me 30 projects a year. And at the end of the year, that does add up, and they're good to me because the projects keep flowing in. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying you should I've been doing this for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, get a huge ego and just snub your nose at anything that's below this golden price, because there are lots of people in my area charging a lot more than I do, and a lot of people charging a lot less. But stay open and be smart about your decisions. Don't just turn something down because it's like, oh, I only want to shoot, cinematic, and that's beneath me. Well, that's fine if that's the artist part of you. I completely get that, but you're also running a business,
exactly, yeah.
And I'm not a natural-born businessman at all. This is all I'm completely self-taught after high school, video business.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, if I can do it, I feel like anybody who's moderately organized and persistent can do it.
The biggest challenge that I have here is actually the currency. Czech Republic, we have Czech crowns. Whatever you're going to buy is going to be in euros or in dollars, because nothing is really produced in Czech Republic in terms of technology for video. That means that I'm paying actually a higher price than you would pay there in the US, because we also have, we're going to have the currency exchange fee in a way. It's going to be a little bit more expensive right there. And then I have the VAT. Of course, I'm a VAT payer. I get that money back, but immediately coming out of account, that's kind of a challenge that we have, 21% over the price. It's quite a little. And the second problem is the rates in which people are willing to pay. In Czech Republic, people are not willing to pay the right rate proportional to how much it is that is whatever is your knowledge or the amount of investment you've done in equipment. Of course, I don't know if you guys ever heard of CODB, cost of doing business. Basically, summing up everything that you invest in, let's say, 2 years, and divide by those 2 years, add up what would be your salary per month, and then you end up discovering what is your price per hour or per day if you want to keep running as a business and have a profit, for example. And people really are not willing to pay that. On the other hand, like you said, sometimes you really have to take some projects, maybe they're going to be a repeating customer. And I have 2 experiences with that. One is with musicians. So far I have had a very good experience. I'm offering a lower price of production for musicians than I normally would, just so they have the opportunity to actually have a video, because musicians here are also as as video producers, or maybe even more. So I'm trying to help that way, and then they end up bringing me more business. They have more videos to make. They end up telling other people about me and so on. And then I had another customer, was supposed to be a very good repeating customer, but then she decided to ignore part of my contract that I had sent her, and my contract basically says I will do up to 2 revisions within the price that I sent you. Mm-hmm. And then we kept on having revisions and revisions and revisions, and then she didn't like that I was charging hours as said in the contract. And then suddenly she said, I just don't want the videos anymore. And that was awful. I mean, I could have easily gone after her, because we had a contract and it was very clear. But then...
Yeah. Well, in contracts, you have to kind of cover your bases with saying that if you then decide you don't want to, the videos you still have to pay. It's like it's a
Yeah, my
something
contract is like
termination.
that.
Yeah,
And she was insisting, and at some point I said, okay, let's leave it. Maybe one day she will want to come back and work with me, because the work was great. From everything that she says, she was very satisfied. She just wasn't satisfied in the end that I was charging.
Have either of you contacted a lawyer when it comes to your contract?
Yeah, in my case, my contract has been reviewed by PwC. I have a contact there, and she
Okay.
went through the lawyers at PwC, and I have the version in 2 languages, in English and in Czech. And in terms of business, I always send the Czech version. If they are foreigner, I send both versions, but the one that's valid is the Czech one.
That's reassuring because the contract I use, and I don't enforce it as often as I should, I pieced together from things I found online and reworded it and inserted my own
yeah,
stuff.
same here.
And then we found out just a month ago that we're all using versions of the exact same contract. Because I remember I shared mine with Sam. He tweaked it to make it his own. He shared it with you. So the fact that you've had it reviewed with a lawyer and it's like pretty solid is reassuring. Because I mean, the way I figured it is like I'll have a contract to cover myself, but in most cases, all of my clients can afford bigger lawyers than I could ever afford. So if it came down to it, I
Absolutely.
would just take the loss. But luckily,
Yeah,
I've never had to worry
In this
about
case,
that.
for me, it was right in the beginning of my business. I mean, just thinking about going after her with a lawyer, it's already an expense that I can't afford, period.
Exactly. Yeah.
And for me, I took it as a learning experience, really. Next time, I will be reminding them all the time. Look, we're just at version 1. You only have another version. Okay, version 2, that's it. Is it final? If it's not final, reminder, it's in the contract. I'm going to charge per hour.
I have I kind of made a thing where it's in the same kind of base contract you sent over, and it's a case of that you have, I think it is 2 revisions as well. So you have version 1 that's sent to you, you can change that, new version, any last changes, right? Change. That's the last one. Technically, it's 3 copies basically, but two revisions, and I have a thing where if there's any spelling mistakes or color issues or rendering issues or things that have gone wrong, that's me. That's not
Yep.
counting towards your
Yeah.
your allotted
Absolutely.
kind of
Yeah,
version.
if you
So-
make a mistake, you can charge them for that, right?
exactly. So that's kind of what I've got as a base. But yeah, exactly. I mean, I find that if clients are that picky about changing stuff that late on in the video editing process, and they're not with you through the entire thing, and then they come to it and they're not ready to pay extra for wanting more changes. It's just, it's not fair on us as kind of creators, and again, it's not fair on the client themselves. They should be more involved and more engaged in what's going on in terms of, and read the contract, you know what I mean? So
I think one reason that's very important in the contract to say how many revisions it's included in that price is because it avoids the customer to go on Frame.io and say, oh, change this one thing, and that's the only comment they make. And then you spend hour working on that, and then you send again, and then they send only one other comment on the next one, and then suddenly you're working on 24 revisions that all of them could have been caught in the very first one.
Yes.
So if you limit the amount of revisions that you have, you're basically telling them, think about it, about it, put all your thoughts together, and send it all at once. And if the text is there, it has happened already with me that a customer would send me the wrong name, and they wouldn't notice until later on. And then at that point, it's not my mistake.
that's very true. Yeah. That's very
Not
true.
for recurring clients. And just this week, I had a client where, the project was almost done being approved, and they messaged on their thread, and they were like, just a little trademark symbol. Can you make that a little smaller? It took me 2 minutes to make the change, export it, and get it up to Frame.io. So I'm not going to charge for that. I don't, those little things, I'm not going to bother.
Yeah.
It takes me less time to do that than it would to even start a clock running. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should. People will disagree with me, but I don't. Keeping my clients happy and knowing that I got their back is as important to me as getting paid
course,
for my
yeah.
time. So
Yeah, I completely agree. And like you said, it's a repeating customer. It's
You've
it
worked with them
wouldn't be even
before.
worth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You've worked with them
and
before
that's a
and you
good
know what they're
advantage
like.
on Final Cut, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing
export
is,
time.
you know, in general, I find online that people who switch from whatever NLE to Final Cut Pro 10 say that they're editing so much faster than before.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that myself, but that doesn't mean I should screw myself. Just because it took me 6 hours before and I can do it in 3 now. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily done in 3. It means I have 6 hours. I have more time to massage and do a better job than just worry about getting it out the door.
What
Or
are you-
I charge more per hour, excuse me.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
Charge you more because you're being quicker.
I'm not going to dock myself because I'm efficient, you know?
Yeah, and for that, I actually have a question. I saw once a guy on YouTube, he was on a conference and explaining why we should not charge per hour. We should charge per finished product.
I don't charge per hour. Like on the invoice, there's like a total, maybe 2 totals, but the hourly is purely what I calculate in my own head to arrive at that total.
Yeah, and at the moment, my customers have asked me a price list. So that's why I have my price per hour. But for example, you being efficient, let's say that an editor, whatever editor in whatever NLE would take 10 hours to do something.
Mm-hmm.
If it takes you 2 hours and you're charging per hour, you're literally being punished by being efficient.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're delivering exactly the same product. And you being efficient should be
Rewarding. You should be rewarding.
it should be a
in terms-
reward for yourself.
Exactly.
And the product in the end has the same value. It doesn't matter how many hours it took to make. If it was 2, 10, or 30 hours, if the product looks the same with 2, 10, or 30 hours, and I'm really talking about that towards efficiency using the NLE, because I know and I have seen colleagues of mine working on Premiere on extremely similar projects in which I could finish a lot faster. And at that time, I was charging per hour in my team, and it meant that I had more projects, and I was charging less overall. So it meant that I was recovering less money than they were overall. So they were working on less projects, they were recovering more money, so they were making more money for the team than me, but I was being efficient. I was working with more customers, I was turning around more things. And in a way, I'm being punished because, I'm not recovering as much money. And I can't do that on my own business as well. I can't simply say, I would prefer, in which I started doing this for a few clients, which is saying, I need this type of video, Philip. How much does it cost? I calculated in my mind how many hours would take me. I add a little bit more just in case.
Yeah. Contingency.
And then I have a price. And when I have that price, I also add because at that point I need to add how much do I make, how much that my company makes, right? So it takes me 4 hours, I have to count the 4 hours, and then how much do I want personally to make on top of that, and then there's the company, and that is my actual price, for example. This actually gives me flexibility and to pay income tax and so on and so forth.
When I first started, up until maybe 2 years ago, coming up with the budget was the most stressful part of everything. Even shooting for a new client, editing, that wasn't stressful compared to the budget. I would spend days just fretting over, I need to make this. Wow, what if they just look at this number and pee themselves? What if they just call me and say, F you, and they just hang up the phone? Now, it's, within a half an hour for most videos, I can just boom, 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 here's the number. And where the turning point for me was I had a client who had a big project out of state. It was the biggest project I would have done for him. It was travel, 5 cameras, and I sent him a number, and he said, that's just way too much. That's way too much. And in the past, I would have said, okay, well, let me, I want it, so let me just cut that in half. I didn't do that. I just wrote back and I said, well, that's what it costs, best of luck. And within a few minutes, he wrote back and said, bottom line, I trust you, so go for it. So I really stood my ground, and that's where I got my confidence to this doesn't mean I never negotiate, but
Of course.
that was a challenge. It's how do you really, I can't fly to another state and shoot a 5-camera shoot and edit, several hours of video for multiple programs for $500.
Of course, yeah.
So what about you guys? How stressed, are you beyond the stress point when you budget?
For me, I have I've got a. I'm looking at it now. Actually, ironically, I have a cool little video, and because I do photography as well. My brother does photography, so it's a video and photo production company. Um, I have a breakdown sheet which is above the line and below the line costs. So everything like above the line is fixed. You can't change it. Like it's project management, writing, insurance, talent, transport, accommodation, things like that. And everything below the line is cost for renting the cameras, cost for renting the sound equipment, cost for renting the lighting, the crew, post production, all of that, and that also includes contingencies. So there's a contingency percentage in there that is added on top of the total cost for each pre-production, production, post, and that's the total. So if people were to kind of add up the numbers themselves, it wouldn't equal what I've given them because there's a contingency on top that's automatically added. So I'm gonna have to send that to you guys so you can have a play with it because that might be kind of cool for you guys. But
I have a very different kind of breakdown sheet. It's more like when things go south with the client. You know, my first step of breakdown is anger, and then it goes into sadness.
oh, I see what you mean.
And then grief, and then revenge. So it kind of comes in a little later in the game.
Little waves, I get you mean.
About the equipment and the price list, I actually have been fighting a little bit with the idea of actually putting equipment there, because what happens is each shoot is different, right? So you might need different equipment that you're going to need to rent. Sometimes you can use your equipment that you own, and sometimes you're going to use equipment that you rent. If you use equipment that you rent, you're adding the rent, and there is that line. You're basically telling the customer to pay for the rent, right? Mm-hmm. But if you own the equipment, normally you end up not putting that line because you already own, but you invested money in that equipment.
Yes.
So in my mind, I'm trying to not include equipment anymore, and that's part of the overall package. I'm not separating by line so much. The only line item that I separate is day rate and half day rate.
For sure.
Basically.
Yes.
Yeah. How much does it cost me being there? That's the only line item that I have. Everything else is to finish the whole thing.
I don't itemize either because you get to things like shooting, importing, editing. When you break it down to that level, they're like, "Well, are you sure you need editing? Can we take that out of there?" Well, I can deliver an SD card
10 hours?
to you, but
Can you do it in 5?
It gives them too many opportunities to nitpick and to break it apart. And
it's probably true.
Once I trust the client and they trust me, I like to be really transparent beyond that. So if they ask, I'll say, "Well, this is how you break down," but I'm not going to publish that. I don't.
Of course.
And I, every project involves starting with talking about a budget and ending with a check or a wire transfer. But throughout the project, I like to not think about money as much as possible. I don't want the client thinking about what they're paying. I want them focused on what I'm doing for them, what we're doing for their company. Yeah. So I try to just kind of get that out of the way as quickly as possible.
One thing as well I was going to mention, going back to the contracts and as well as this, is with day rates and hour rates we mentioned just. Mm-hmm. One thing I do kind of add in with my contract and my rate is I use day rates, I don't use hour rates, with the exception of changes and revisions.
Oh, yes, same here.
I have an hour rate for my changes. So, for example, if a client asks me, "Oh, can you change this? It's outside the scope of work." It's an hour rate. It's like, it's more. My hour rate is more than my day rate to cover the loss of what I'm losing, what I'm missing out on if they were to have me for a day. Mm-hmm. So my hour rate is actually more than my day rate. In terms of, if you were to add an 8-hour day with my hour rate, it's more than it would be to just get me on a day rate.
Do you sell hour package? Like, for example,
no.
I sell you like a 10-hour package, and you use however you want. Do you have?
No. I just have a day or a half day. But the hour rate is literally a case of, well, this needs changing. Okay, it's going to take me 2 hours at £40. That's 80 quid. And it's a case of, right, yeah, but say if my normal motion graphics rate is like £300 a day, which I think it probably is. I have to double check. I've done so many rates for so many different people. It's a case of, what is my rate now? I've forgotten. We say it's £300. it would be a case of, right, my rate would be, you know, for motion graphics would be £60 an hour, and already it's going to be more than a day rate because I'm working. I have to make up that time I'm losing when I'm not working, or if I finish early. If that makes sense. So
makes sense. Yeah,
exact
makes sense
case of,
because if you edit for, let's say, 5 hours, you already
Exactly,
can't have
yeah.
a full day, and you already can't have a half day
exactly. So
if you don't
kind of
want
have
to kill
balance that.
yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. So like you kind of have to add more on top of your hour rate, which is something I recommend doing if you are going
Makes
to
sense.
charge per hour. But I recommend don't. In general, just charge
Yeah,
half day or day rates.
Yeah, I mean, except the day rates and stuff like that, I really like the idea of being a package, for example. Mainly
Yeah,
if it's for
package rates.
editing. Mainly if it's for editing.
Editing, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
It's like, oh, we already shot this music video. Can you edit for us? How much does it cost? Yeah,
Well,
give
yeah.
it a price. I will finish the video with that price. And of course, try to limit how many times they can change anything. Sometimes, depending on the customer, like weddings, I don't allow any changes at all.
Exactly.
For weddings,
yeah,
it is,
Well,
it is
saying that,
what
I think-
I deliver.
I think with wedding clients and customers like that who it's a bit of a tricky thing, because I don't particularly want to offend people that have, you know, the wedding. Well, when it's wedding films in general are a market in their own, and I'm not just, you know, they are fully professional in everything they do. It's the client side of it that, like, I don't think they're going to be as picky as, say, a marketing director. Because
It depends. It
You would be
depends.
surprised. You would be
suppose.
surprised. Like
I suppose.
a bride is like, oh, my best friend that is almost in every shot. We don't talk anymore. I don't want.
I was scared, I suppose, yeah. I was actually thinking that just. Yeah,
So
that does
what do
make
you
a lot
do?
of sense.
What do you do in that case? Do you just like CG a little Jar Jar Binks on top of her and all those scenes?
I was going to
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
put
so
like
that's
a
what I'm
face
saying.
on there and.
I have meetings with them before. Try to be as much before in advance, and I explain to them how I work. I tell them, look, you came to me because you already saw my videos and you already see my style and you like it. That's a fact. And the thing is, I have total creative freedom. That's what I tell them. The creative freedom is mine. I will choose the music. I will not choose any pop song or anything like that. And I try to make a film out of it. So I want to collect people's speeches and so on, so I can make a story and a film out of it. In Czech Republic, that doesn't work very much because people do not do vows. And they don't have
Okay,
speeches,
that's
which
interesting.
makes it a bit boring. But when it happens and it goes on, I know what I need to get to make a nice video. And I just tell them, look, once I deliver to you, that's it. This is your film from me to you. It's almost a gift from me to you.
Almost a gift once you send the check.
Yeah. The video, here's how much you need to pay for before you can have it. As well.
And for weddings, I ask for it at least 3 months to finish the film.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot of work, man.
Oh,
The
yeah,
weddings
yeah.
that I've done a few
Oh, yeah.
weddings, and all of them are arriving on site like 4:30 in the morning, 5 a.m. to get the sunrise, and get everything before it's organized for the wedding. And I finish shooting at 11 p.m. It's
Yeah.
a long day.
I've only shot 4 weddings. I've edited 2, and man, people really like to rip on wedding producers, but it's a ton of work. And sure, there are a lot of people doing weddings out there who just produce garbage work. It's like they're phoning it in. But that's true of people in every echelon of the industry. So I'm not sure why wedding people get picked on, because it's the longest shoot day. There is no take 2, no matter what.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the pressure is there. You pretty much always have to use at least 2 cameras now.
Yeah, you don't ask the bride to, you don't ask the bride to walk down the aisle again, right? Hey, sorry, I didn't get it.
Slow down,
It was out of
yeah.
focus.
Yeah,
Exactly. They don't do that. And most of the time, they are working on their own. These guys, you know, they're working on their own, running around with 2 cameras, setting up tripods and audio recorders, and the wedding film is a challenge in of itself. The category for solo business owners, if you want to go into that.
Well, half the challenge for me has been the photographer always in my shot. We got lucky on one wedding where the photographers, and we got along really well and kind of worked out how to do this where
Clockwise,
we could support each other
You have to.
mutually. But there were a couple where these photographers, it's as if they were attempting to photobomb and ruin all your shots, and they're automatically getting paid more than you. And it's like, my job is like, as an art form, I don't think video is worth any more than photography. They're both,
Both using cameras.
completely pure art forms. But shooting a wedding video-wise, I don't care what anybody says, is way harder than being a photographer. Just
Yeah,
sorry.
because a photographer can move anywhere at any
multiple
time.
cameras, audio. We can't just grab a shot and go. We got to the whole moment in there.
Yeah.
With changing conditions, and photographers have way more leeway with their ISO and shutter speed. We have limited range when we're shooting video. It's just we can't stop to like some video people like to stage them. That's fine. I don't. When I've done it, I prefer to be more documentary, like kind of fly on the wall. This is what's happening. I'm going to try to make it look as beautiful and as dramatic as possible, but the photographers are already setting you up and making you pretend to love each other, so I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Me
Staged
personally, I have two experiences with photographers. One, when they have a very large ego. When they have a very large ego, I tell them, look, I will try as much as possible to stay out of your way, and if we can try to agree more or less which side you're going to be moving more, I can be just off to the side of you, and it tends to work. The other one is where the photographer is not that experienced, and they want to take my lead. So they let me be the main one shooting something, and they're never in front of in my shot. And about the staging, I actually have two. I do both of them. I stage them getting dressed. So I might get them to in and out of their clothes for like 15, 20 minutes. Get someone to come and help, and it's actually very nice. Getting a lot of close-ups and tell them, look, do whatever you're doing, do slower than you normally would do. And the guys normally hate that.
Wow. How do you navigate that with the bride, making her take her clothes on and off and asking her to do it more slowly?
Well, in Czech Republic, people are very open.
Okay.
When you're around, they don't care. They don't really care.
I
Of course, we try to be as respectful as possible. So, for example, when I go shooting a wedding, I try as much as possible to have a woman with me.
Yes.
I always had, for example, I was married, and my wife at that time, she went to the weddings with me, so she would be making the bride a little bit calmer with everything. So it was always a very good dynamic. Mm-hmm. But it's sometimes about, for example, the dress is closing in the back, and
Sure.
I ask them to start tying and then untie again, and it's just to show that the
Makeup
process
and
of
things like that.
getting there, yeah.
Yeah.
Makeup a
and
lot.
things like- yeah.
Makeup takes literally half the day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
So I go there several times a day to get in different stages. And if I'm filming by myself, which happens very often, I tell them, you have to give me a schedule by the minute of what you're doing and where. I can only do it by myself if it's in the same general vicinity, of course. Can't be in two different parts of the city at the same time. When it's different part of the city, of course, I have to have other camera crew in a different place. But I tell them, look, you're going to get dressed at this time. You're going to get dressed at this time. And then I start helping them moving things around to make the video possible. A lot of them, they don't really have a wedding planner.
A schedule.
No.
Yeah.
Or know what they're
At
doing.
least here. Here, if they have a wedding planner, the possibility of me getting well paid is much higher. If they had
Interesting.
money to hire a wedding planner, they have money to pay me a good price for the video.
That's very true.
But I haven't had those weddings yet.
It's like having their own marketing agency with them. It's like you might have a higher rate of getting paid.
Yeah, I still wanna go and contact a wedding agency. I don't love doing wedding stuff because it's a disproportional amount of work for what you get for it.
Yeah. I don't
both
advertise at all
Yeah.
weddings.
No.
Yeah,
Well, it's
I've
just
done weddings
corporate,
only.
commercial
Actually,
things like that.
I've done only weddings for friends and friends of friends.
How many
Yeah,
divorces
that's-
have you shot?
I shot 3 only. Enough.
Three divorces? Yeah.
Let me think. No, all of them are together still.
Oh,
Okay,
good.
that's good.
Okay.
No divorce.
I'm the only
yet.
one divorced.
Yet.
We're all pretty outspoken Final Cut Pro 10 editors.
Yes, right.
Not to define ourselves by the tool we use. We've all used the other tools, but we're pretty big fans of that. And last week we got an update to Final Cut Pro 10, 10.4.1. So Sam, what are the key features in that update that kind of jumped out at you?
Well, there's closed caption support now, which is pretty useful, especially for your non-hearing and for trying to find the right word for it, where you've got videos on like a market display where you can't have audio and things like that. It's very useful to kind of have closed captioning there, and for people who can't hear very well, and deaf viewers that want to actually enjoy the content but they can't necessarily get everything out of it. There's that, and also something else that I'm kind of particularly excited for is ProRes RAW, which kind of is in a Final Cut Pro 10 update, but it's bundled with Final Cut Pro 10, and it's the I think it's pretty game changing. I've had a bit of a play with some of the files, and the latitude you've got with working with ProRes is quite astonishing. I mean, it's compared to RAW and how smooth it plays back as well. It's I'm saying like RAW is in red code RAW and things like that. It's a breath of fresh air when it comes to working with footage with that latitude that can play back and you don't need a massively beefy system in order to run it, because it's ProRes. So that's one thing I'm really excited to kind of working with a lot more in terms of kind of high range. I wouldn't use it for every shoot, but for
that's the thing.
For like a high end commercial or something where I'm getting paid a lot of money to kind of bring in a good camera, like a EVA 1 or something, but that can output 5.7K in ProRes RAW. That's just going to be insane in the long run.
Well, yeah. Would I like every single one of my projects to be shot on an Alexa and have a helicopter shot and be recorded in RAW and graded with Resolve with a professional colorist?
I don't know how weddings
do,
work
do I want
like that.
do I want a boom operator instead of me doing it? Yeah, I would like all of that, but there's not the time, nor the budget, nor anybody to help me do that. So while ProRes RAW in general, it's on its own is really intriguing to me. And while even now I record some projects in ProRes 422, really for most of what I do, it's way overkill. The client,
Exactly.
I could deliver in 720p, and the client would have no idea that it's not HD, much less 4K. So, and a lot of people, especially at the bottom, you've got like people who shoot birthday parties, and at the top you've got Hollywood and broadcast, and this like kind of middle 90% that we fall in. That 90% tends to overlook the additional costs. So you've got RAW, I've got a camera that can record RAW, or a camera plus an external recorder, and they're failing to factor in that you've got to buy 4 times as much storage to accommodate that. And, like, we go through hard drives like tissues, but it's still, none of us are multi-millionaires with large crews and large headquarters, so it's still an expense that's important to factor in.
Absolutely. One thing I do think is quite on the other end of that, though, in terms of when you said like it's you would like to have the ability to kind of shoot with an RE and have helicopter shots and do all this, and I think ProRes RAW is actually that kind of same thing that Final Cut Pro 10 does with the democratization of the RAW codec and the RAW format, because if you've got an Atmos or you've got a recorder that can support ProRes RAW, you've got access to RAW recording now. You can get the full data of your camera, and you have it. I mean, like you can get it on the FS5 Mark 1 and Mark 2. I'm guessing, seeing as though they're both the same camera. But we'll get into that another day. But you can get it out of the FS5 Mark 1, and you can get the full scope of the camera's sensor and use it on that camera, even though it's, I don't know when it was released, like 2012 I believe, or 2011, 2012 sometime I believe, and the fact that you can still do that with that camera shows that it's you don't have to really kind of invest in a newer camera to get the capabilities of shooting RAW. I think that kind of level playing field is quite cool and opens up a lot of options for people who want to do higher end stuff on their current equipment rather than buying out expensive or renting out more expensive equipment. I think that's a very cool thing.
there's the other thing about ProRes RAW as well. I think in the long run, ProRes RAW will be the death of log, to be honest.
Potentially.
Because I got a couple of sample clips that I was able to download today, finally, of an actual person in front of the camera, lots of colors, one of those sets that they set up at NAB. And the very first thing that screamed in my face was how smooth the playback was. It was 4K, ProRes RAW, and it was playing back like nothing, really, on my iMac. I still need to test on my MacBook
as well.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, if you put that footage on a Rec 2020 timeline or an HDR PQ timeline, for example, you can actually see that the camera is capturing 2,000 nits. That footage has 2,000 nits of latitude there, and immediately. So if you're working on HDR and you're grading for 1,000 nits or 500 nits, you literally just need to go there and crunch a little bit. And the colors already look amazing. You're not really working with a log that is super flat. So the footage that I was seeing, it was like, wow, I don't even know what I would do here. Besides balancing, in case it's not balanced the color, it's just the creative freedom. I so far like what I'm seeing, and I'm really looking forward to see where it's gonna go, what camera manufacturers are gonna adopt for you to be able to record internally. There is the challenge of having raw data coming out of HDMI at the moment. It looks like no one is doing that yet, but who knows, maybe Panasonic will do. And the EVO one, you can also do raw out of their STI with the EVO one. So you can do EVO 1 plus Inferno or Shogun, and boom, you have raw.
What are you guys doing in terms of stepping up your game with getting more clients? Are you looking to branch out to other areas of video production? Are you doing more motion graphics, doing more video editing? What kind of areas are you guys doing? Because for me, at the moment I'm doing a lot more kind of I'm doing kind of more employed stuff for companies that are, like I mentioned before, I'm working with a high-end YouTube publisher. They do a lot of games, content, gameplay, things like that. Live streams, brand deals, such and such. So for me, working with them, because I've been watching them for about, since 2009, really, and being able to work for them is kind of a highlight for my particular career. So for me, that's kind of me stepping up my game and working with higher end companies, higher end clients, and doing freelance and full-time work for them. And I'm kind of pushing more into doing a lot more motion graphics work's kind of been the thing for me lately. But I do kind of want to reach into more high-end corporate clients. Do a lot more interviews, do a lot more. What's the word I'm after? I like interviewing people. I like getting stories across, telling higher end stories, and really kind of, I suppose, reaching more audience members with what kind of stuff I can do and what I can create with the tools that I have. What about you, Gabriel? What kind of things are you going to kind of use and do to step up your game in terms of video and things like that?
There's an endless list of things involved in production that we can always do better. For me, it's always, how do I tweak the lights? How do I light better? How do I make my setups quicker? How can I make the talent more comfortable and make the gear disappear more into the background so that they're not distracted? I'm not dealing with, trained actors normally or ever. How can I add more camera movement? How can I make my footage look more cinematic, which is its own episode? Beyond that, it's, how can you get away from the standard interview, B-roll, tagline,
course, yeah.
Done. That's great. I'm pretty good at that. That can be kind of formulaic, and I feel like I'm pretty good at making that feel like it has a really nice rhythm and pace. I'm fortunate in that I have a friend who's also my composer. And without him, I don't think I could achieve that at the same level. I know I couldn't. He just gives every video its own feeling, its own life. And that really, for me, helps it stand apart from a great deal of what stock music can offer, which doesn't mean
course.
that there aren't amazing pieces of stock music that are used really well all the time. But
Yeah.
I like that I can give a client a video and nowhere ever are they going to hear that same piece of music in another video. It belongs to them. They own the track. If they have other videos in a series, the music remains.
Yeah, and they won't get at the door going, "Excuse me, you've used our music and so."
No, if they sell the track on iTunes, my composer is going to knock on their door. But apart from that,
That's true. Yeah.
they're completely secured.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if finding bigger clients is always a nice thing, and for me, yeah, I want to get paid, and the more I can get paid, the better. But fundamentally, I would like to make movies, and so for me, it's all about slowly building a movie studio. I mean, I could make a low budget movie now, but not by myself. So it's also about finding talent that I can bring in that I can trust. Can you shoot in focus? Bottom line. And then if you're
Yeah, of
competent
course.
in all the other areas, okay, then you're hired for this project,
Yeah.
And that kind of ties back to the whole get a grip thing, getting an assistant. My wife actually recently quit her job and is about to join the company.
Oh wow, awesome.
My biggest client right now, I'm in a contract with them, and she's contracting with them through my company as well. So, I mean, they've been really good to us, and we're really excited about them. I mean, I care about every project you do for every client, but it's rare when you get a glimpse inside their company and everybody who works there, and you all get along, and you share their vision, and you really want to step up. Like for this client alone, there are certain things I can offer that they have an interest in, where I can see it not only benefiting me because it would challenge me to do better work, it would help their business grow. And so that's like a really fortunate thing. I'm extremely grateful for that. So that's an exciting thing. And so my wife will be editing, doing some shooting. Her first big shoot is next Thursday and Friday, which is great.
Oh wow.
I've been training her in Final Cut Pro 10 all week on these long 22-hour multicam projects that we cut down to 10 hours. And I had the iPhone on her hands the other day on the keyboard because that's how I've been training her. And in like a 3 or 4 minute clip, she reached for the mouse once, and it was only to scroll the timeline. So she was trimming, rolling edits, cutting camera angles, adding and modifying markers, all with the keyboard. And I mean, she's going to be like one of the most efficient editors there, which
That's
makes me
awesome.
really proud.
Jealous.
Makes me
Jealous
feel
or
good.
proud?
Well, she could be faster than me soon because, I had to teach myself Final Cut from the ground up.
Of course.
Well, to be fair, I didn't completely teach myself. As I mentioned, Ripple Trading helped a lot. Lynda.com helped a lot. You guys have helped a lot. The whole Final Cut 10 community helped a lot. But I didn't have to unlearn bad habits. So
Of course.
I'm just teaching her the most efficient way to do it. And so far, she's nailing it, which is really, I already know she can shoot. So for me, it's kind of ironic that, we started this show called Get a Grip. And literally within like the week of recording this episode today, I actually kind of got a grip. So I mean, she's more than the grip.
And it's your wife as well, so it's kind of ironic, really. It's like she's the one that tells you to get a grip. It's in probably in some cases, but I find it's really awesome that like you're teaching a Final Cut and she's getting it that quickly.
Yes.
And that speaks volumes for the application itself in terms of like anyone can pick it up and start using it, and it really does. It's that intuitive that you can just go, right, let's go with it. I think that's really awesome.
She's the one who gave me the flashcards years ago when I was training for to be Apple Pro certified in Final Cut Pro 7. And so she still, names things off just humorously, mark to marker. So just things that she remembers from back in the day, but she never had to edit in that. So she doesn't have to unlearn any track-based editing. She can just dive right in, and she's just like, oh, well, this is just what editing is. And she gets it. I mean, it's been a week. There's a ton to learn. There are things about Final Cut. I know everything Final Cut can do, but I don't know all of the 500 keyboard shortcuts. There are always nooks and crannies yet unexplored. But yeah, it's just been really encouraging, and it's fun for me to watch my wife editing because I've been doing it for so long now, and it's good to see her. It's good when I can sit back and have her say, do you want me to play back that edit? And I say, yeah. And she's pressing Shift ? And looping the edit without me telling her the shortcut. And then the next edit,
That's awesome.
do you want me to play that back? And I was like, no, because I was watching it on the viewer, and it's like right on, it's perfect. You know, not just because you knew where the button was, but as an edit, it was at a good point that was seamless. And so for her to be doing that, I mean, I'm not teaching her how to edit, Schindler's List right now, but
course.
it's great. It's really,
awesome.
really nice to see. Yeah.
What about you, Philippe? What are you doing to kind of up your game and get kind of, just to up your
My
game?
game right now is to get clients.
Isn't everybody?
Yeah, I mean, me, I have a completely different set of things that I have to work out, right? For example, I'm in a country where I don't speak the native language. So one of the things for me to up my game is really to learn the local language, which is kind of a shame because I have been living here for such a long time, but always working in American companies and people around, they all speak English. So I ended up never learning Czech, so that's on the top of my list. It's basically the soft skills. And it's actually impressive the amount of people that lose jobs and clients due to soft skills. It's not about you being or not a good editor or shooter. A lot of people lose clients because they don't know how to communicate.
Yes. Meetings are so important. I mean, if you are fumbling around and you don't really know what you're talking about, they're going to see that. I mean, you need to exude I'm not saying you need to read all these positive psychology books and self-help books to get in that, but like, be yourself. But like, yeah, you need to not convince. They need to be comfortable with
assured that you know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. I'm guessing it's
Yes.
kind of
And you can easily find information like people are hired for their hard skills and fired for their soft skills. There are a lot of people, for example, programmers. You're very skilled in this language and etc. You've done some great stuff before. Yeah, great. But then put that person in a team. And they're not able to work in a team environment. They're not able to deal with other people or with clients and etc. And then suddenly they were hired for their hard skills, the skills in the software, and they were fired because they're just not good at dealing with people, for example.
Are you telling me that programmers have no people skills?
Goodness me.
If I say that, I might offend too many people. And I have a lot of friends that are programmers. A lot of them are going to say, yeah, I absolutely don't have people skills. I know doctors that don't have people skills. And it's pretty much a requirement, right? You're dealing with people.
Yeah.
And
I think, yeah.
My luck is that I'm an IT person that does video and I have people skills. So I'm very, very lucky in that, in that sense of the word. But on the other hand, I don't have a lot of clients right now, so I'm kind of struggling, trying to find. Somehow I'm stumbling. Like, suddenly I find a client, and then I get that little payment that really ends up helping things around. So for now, I would say besides learning the language, the biggest thing that I need to do is to network. I need to go into events locally here and meet people from the industry because I was closed in a corporate environment for such a long time that I don't have that network.
I think as video shooters and video producers, people that work in video production, we kind of have to have people skills really to kind of deal with the amount of crap we get. In all honesty, it's a bit like we not it's always crap. I'll rephrase it a little bit, but most of the time we do have to kind of deal with clients that can be a little bit pickier than normal, a little bit more full on, and we kind of have to go right. We can have to deal with situations when things go wrong, problems occur. We have to be problem solvers, people,
Counselors
for ourselves, and we also need to be well trained in stress relief and
still do your job.
Yeah, it's a full-time job being a filmmaker and being a video producer. Some people are very kind of like, I don't know, they just brush it off after a while. It's like, video's not a real job. I hate hearing people say, YouTube's not a real job and things like that. It's like, if you saw the amount of work that went into it behind the scenes, you would change your mind completely.
I've had a lot of jobs before I got into this professionally. I mean, I've worked in a million restaurants. I've worked in chemical companies, Kinko's for a half an hour. I've had a lot of jobs I've been through, the real world, and this job is by far more difficult, more challenging, also more rewarding. But I mean,
exactly. I was going to say on the flip side,
there's nobody for me to rely on. If something gets up, it's on me.
Yeah.
and I have to be accountable.
It's a
for
blessing
that.
and a curse, really, because you know it's like, oh, I f***ed that up, but I can fix it very easily. So it's like you can kind of almost stop yourself before you go too far into it. You can kind of go, right, yeah, that's me. I messed that up, but okay, I can quickly fix that. Boom, done.
Well, yeah. Hopefully, you build things into your workflow that will allow you to cover ups. You know, I'm not saying I've ever been on a shoot and the client gave the response and then I realized the audio wasn't recording, and I'm not saying I had to say to them, "Can you try that again, but smile this time?"
You have never done that? I've done that.
Oh no,
Literally.
Well, yeah.
Except with the CEO. Except with the CEO. I mean, that guy, yeah, but I've done things like there was a guy that had, he was bald as well, and they had a blob appearing on his head from the
hot
light.
spot.
And,
wow.
and I was like, hey, can I put some powder there to just get rid of this blob? And then he looked at me and was like, I hope you're not calling me a blob. But the thing is, the way I was talking, and if I feel that I can be a little bit playful, I am, and to make them a little bit more relaxed and things like that. So I end up having a very good relationship with my clients, and they always ask me in the end, how was it? And say, it was great, but can we do a second take, and this time maybe try giving a pause in the beginning, smile, for example. I always tell them, right before you start talking, give me a 2-second smile. So it would be something like this. Look here. Hi, my name is Felipe.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, if you don't do that, it happens this other thing. And then they start talking. There are some people that click the mouth before they start talking, or they do, hello. It's much better to go and say, hi, and you start from the smile. It's so much nicer. Depending on the message, right? If you're talking about someone dying, probably not the smile. But. And then there's the other things. For example, speech patterns in which people are repeating too many times a certain word. I've noticed that in myself. I do okay all the time. I do, okay, here we go. And then in the end of the phrase, I said, okay. And I'm like, why am I saying so many times okay? And I started having to chop off all of those okays, and it looks awful.
Goodness me.
Yeah, well, I speak quickly. I don't enunciate everything. I dart around a lot. I think after 42 years now,
But then again,
I'm not going to see that change probably.
But then again, if you think about it, we are the people that are behind the camera, not so much in front of it. So I think for us, it's a case of we're not used to that. Same again, the client might not be used to it either, but like we're not used to that level of interaction with a camera and more talking to the clients. Can you speak like this? Can you talk like this? Can you smile? So for us, kind of taking our own advice is a bit of a trick, because sometimes we don't listen to ourselves even at the best of times.
Only when you edit, you're gonna notice that.
Yeah, exactly.
Only once you start editing yourself, you're gonna say, "Oh my God, why am I doing that?"
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I think we kind of have to give sympathy when we kind of have to. That's where the people skills come in. We kind of have to go, right, I know you're doing this naturally, but we have to kind of work it out for the video. So
It's nice because you're putting yourself on their shoes too.
exactly, yeah.
I expressed to both of you when we were coming up with a show idea that I have no interest in being like a YouTube personality. Hey, that's a quirk. I've done the quote thing like 40 times in this episode, 41
There
now.
we go.
So that's gonna really bother the hell out of me when I'm editing. I have no interest
There
in,
we go.
hey, welcome to my that's not, people do that, that's great. I hate it. I don't want it. I just want us to be ourselves.
Yeah.
Full
Natural.
of energy, man.
Yes. Hopefully the content of the show itself and the way it's put together will be enough to hold your attention. I'm well aware that the view count rate will go as soon as the logo comes on in the beginning. It's going to drop off because people have no
I would
attention
say 2
span
minutes
anymore.
later.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too into that because that is a depressing feature of humanity nowadays. It seems to me if you get past the logo or the first couple of sentences and you tune out, if it's that soon, I'm not going to assume that our video sucks. I'm going to assume it's because your attention span sucks.
Do you know what I would like to see in terms of audience for this show?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting.
I would like to see women. I
Yes.
would like to see women. We are guys, of course. We are 3 guys doing this, but at least in my YouTube channel, I look at the audience, and it's mainly guys. It's like 100% men watching my channel, and I'm thinking there are women doing production, there are women doing editing. I have to figure out what it is that appeals to them. Is it to have a woman as well in the show, or I would like to hear from people actually what they think about that.
Well, I just hired a woman, and except even though really she's my boss, but she'll never let me put her on camera. So
She works for
You
you,
know.
but she's your boss.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, she's my wife. It's better just
There we
to
go.
you run the show. That's all. I'll run this
There we
show, but you run our yeah.
Goodness me.
But yeah, you're right. Even at the Final Cut Pro 10 Creative Summit last October, there were like 5 women there.
It's a very important to kind of. I think with this show we're going to be very honest and open, and for me, I feel like the women's side of the production world and the media world, I think, need more of a voice in terms of speaking and kind of talking, and hopefully we appeal to that side of the market, side of the industry as well. So it's going to be interesting to see where that kind of comes. It'd be great to get some female people on here as guests, female filmmakers, female producers, things like that. So
Women power. Monica, I'm looking at you. Women power. Let's go. Final Cut.
Yeah, I don't want an all-male show, even though the 3 of us are big Final Cut Pro 10 fans. I don't want this to be like the Final Cut Pro 10 show. That already exists. Certainly that'll come into play a lot, but I would like to have
it's going to be
a
a
premier editor,
percentage.
an avid editor. This is for all spectrums of video production, from, as I said before, birthday videos to feature filmmaking and everywhere in between. It doesn't matter what tools you use. A lot of people talk about, Premiere Pro is a professional NLE and Final Cut Pro 10 is for amateurs. I think they miss the point completely, because software is not professional.
Yeah.
People are professional. So, you can edit a 40-minute feature in iMovie. I've done it. So, was it
Exactly.
amazing? No, it wasn't amazing, but it can be done. So,
Gotcha.
My iPhone has been recording 4K 30 frames HEVC continuously for an hour and 40 minutes. No overheating warning whatsoever.
nice.
Sony, I'm talking to you.
That's a nice point, I think, to wrap up this episode, really. I think that's going to segue into a few of our other discussions about hardware and software and things like that maybe in the future. So, that was a great podcast, guys. I think that was a good first episode to kind of, introduce ourselves and what we do. It's going to be a very loosey-goosey. We'll have some topics, but a lot of the time it's going to be just natural, how we feel about a particular thing and where we want to go with it. So,
But I do want to say that, right now I think our audience is 1. By the time the show airs, maybe there will be 5. But we do want to hear from you, guys and girls. Anything that interests you, any questions you have, anything you want us to cover, we do want to talk about. We've got a long list of topics, but that's not set in stone. And we don't have an agenda to convince anybody that one workflow is better than another, necessarily. So yeah, we do want to hear from you.
Yeah, we'll get more guests
And
on as well.
thank you for having me.
Philippe's going to be Philippe's going to be here as well from time to time. I believe you're going to be kind of on here as much as you can. But if you want to be on as a guest, or if we're going to have guests on, I think that's going to be great to kind of open up a lot of talking options. Get more insight into what people do, and I think it's going to be a good show. I think if you're going to join us, it's going to be one heck of a ride. So thank you guys, and we'll probably see you guys in the next one. Thanks, you. See you guys.
Sam? Philippe?
Thank you.
Bye bye.